Sorry.
Rome Charpentier versus Matt Field. Just showing you, nobody's perfect. Still trying to hit that 100-point qualifying line. Here, oh wow, Rome just buzzing the tower there of Matt Field's Corvette. Rome higher than Matt Field. Look at this, Matt Field. Let's see what you got, man. As he is pedaling it right next to Rome Charpentier now.
Welcome, Lone Star Drift audience. I'm Aaron. This video is about Driftweek. We are always trying to make Driftweek exciting, bringing in some of the best drivers in the world, awesome YouTubers, grassroots guys, all that kind of stuff. This video is about me bringing in new drivers to Driftweek, which we're doing applications right now. I just finished the first round of applications and we have about 50% of the people sorted with spots for Driftweek. I'm still filling about half the spots. And this is Rome. I want to bring in more of the best drivers in the world, Formula D guys, Pro 1 guys. I want some D1 guys. We've already had, there's rumors of like some cool drivers coming over that are the best in the world. I don't want to use them for marketing just in case they don't come, but everybody already knows who I'm talking about. So anyways, this is Rome. I want to chat with you. First of all, what have you been doing today?
So today we just got back. I was filming, basically teaching drifting lessons to Alex, which is the lady that is basically the main character lady on the Motor Trend show. So basically working with Motor Trend and just filming all day drifting and like how to drift and getting them really into drifting. I guess she's a champion drag racer. So it's really cool to see people stepping from other kind of genres and other types of racing into and being inspired by drifting. So we did our first filming today, super dope episode, really basic stuff, but got her extremely fired up, and she definitely kind of got bit by that drifting bug. So she's excited, and we'll probably do some more things as well.
So how many days a year do you actually drift right now? Because there's some guys like Chelsea that probably drift, I don't know, not 200, but 120 days a year or something like that. And then there's a lot of Pro 1 guys that might only drift 10 days a year. Where do you fall in that range?
So pretty high. Last year we drifted, I think, like 98 days. So almost 100, which I was swinging for 100, but with the whole COVID and all that, it fell a little bit short. So I'll probably be over that this year for sure. We've been just cranking out a bunch of stuff, doing a ton of events. And honestly, Driftweek was something I've always wanted to do. So it's, once I kind of figured out that it fit in my schedule, I was super, super pumped about that.
I hate sounding like an advertisement, but I have to ask these like natural questions, even though they sound kind of loaded. What brought you to Driftweek and like, why'd you get interested in it?
So seat time, I've always been huge on seat time. I asked Chelsea. So I started driving, almost 6 years ago. And I asked Chelsea in Vegas for, I guess it was SEMA. Yeah, so at SEMA, he had a Phillies hat on. And I'm like, hey, man, I know you have no idea who I am, but I want to learn how to drift. I drive an E36, super inspired by you. Like, what do I need to do to become a pro driver? And he's like, well, you need to drive like 50 days a year. Now, for me, I was driving about 5, so 50 days was a straight up quantum leap. Like, there's no way that was going to happen. But I kind of started to figure out how to make it happen. Started asking for, some takeoffs and buying just used tires and just trying to figure out how I could get around and make it more efficient and get me driving. And that was 17. So in 18, I was committed. I was like 50 days a year, 50 days a year, 50 days a year. Well, we didn't drive 50 days a year. We drove 76 days a year. And we ended up running 3 Pro-Am series. So Top Drift. Oh, look. There we go. Top Drift here. There we go. Drift League there and Vegas Drift here. So we ran all 3 of them. Vegas Drift I had to drop out of because there was 2 weekends that were corresponding or overlaying the same as Top Drift. But we ended up winning Top Drift and Drift League together the same year. So like double won both of them, which got us our Pro 2 license. Then we went to Pro 2 when it was actually still a thing. The last year Pro 2 in 19, and then from there went up and moved into Pro 1 in 20. But it was the seat time that really drew me to to the whole Driftweek concept. I have a couple of really good friends that always drive Driftweek. So they've been trying to drag me from the beginning, but it's always been corresponding weekends, or it's been, it just hasn't made sense for us. So that was the hardest part for me right now is schedule, because we're so packed and so busy doing so many other things that I was really excited when we first chatted, and or not really with you, but just when I chatted with Spiegel, Aaron, and was like, hey, this is the time frame. I know you're not doing shit. Like, you're coming out, or like, don't call me anymore. I was like, all right, I guess I'm in. Like, what are we doing? Let's go. So that kind of opened my eyes. That was right after SEMA was, kind of the time frame on that. And that, along with me wanting to get more seat time and drive tracks I've never drove before, those are probably the three biggest things that was like, look, like, this is going to be super cool. Like, let's go for it.
That's awesome. And if people aren't familiar with you yet, do you want to explain exactly what you do? You're a Pro 1 driver, right? You had a podium at FD this year recently. How many years have you been driving? How many years have you been doing Formula D? Do you have any other like really big highlights in your career?
So how long I've been driving is, this is like my 6th year I'm working on. So 6 years ago, I didn't even know what Formula Drift or drifting was at all. I saw Motegi Super Drift. There we go. So Motegi Super Drift, Long Beach Grand Prix. Saw it, got super pumped. I was like, you know what? I can do this. Like, I know I can make this happen. And I had no car, no budget, no team, no nothing. And just kind of had to start from the basics. I bought a $500 E36 BMW, which is still my same chassis. So I've been in the same chassis the whole time, same car. Like, the same exact car that I bought is the same car I have now. Some low lights / highlights. It's like we flipped the truck and trailer on the way to round 1, which is crazy. We did really well. So did really bad in Pro-Am, right? So super bad our first year in Pro-Am. Never qualified, nothing. In 17, we went to Holly LS Fest, which was the first one on the West Coast, and went to there, qualified like middle of the field, and then ended up actually winning the event on scrubs. We street drove the vehicle there. Like, we had no business kind of being there, but did really well. Ended up winning the event. And at that moment, it kind of dawned on me, like, all right, you know what? This is going to be super dope. Like, this is something we can definitely do. So that first win was what really kind of set me over the top, and was like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. Like, let's go. And from there, we just kind of pushed hard. Then I had the conversation with Denofa in SEMA, like, what do I need to do? How do I do this? Because I was working for other teams at the time, just as a mechanic, like as a side hand, as anything, just to get involved and be all in as I possibly could. And I was actually with like Trent Beecham's team and Rob Carlson back then. So I worked for them. And then, talked to Denofa. He's like, drive a bunch. I got in the car. I drove as much as I could. Got won both of the Pro-Am championships that were close to us, Top Drift and Drift League. Super cool. Drift League really got me ready for the Big Bank, because we started driving on at Irwindale on the Big Bank. And it was crazy because we did that all in basically a pretty stock E36. It was a 5.3 with a cam in it that we got out of a trade for RC cars. So I traded this random guy RC cars for his LS, knockoff LS, that was sitting in his total truck in his driveway. And he pulled the motor out. We traded. I put that in my car. We won 2 championships with that motor. And then John Schaefer came to me, which is another local driver to us, and was like, hey, man, like, I'll buy your motor and trans. I'm like, well, it's not for sale. I kind of want to save it. He's like, no, like, I need one. I'll buy it. You put a new motor in. You're going to Pro 2. Like, let me get that. So then we upgraded to the 6.0, which is actually the same 6.0 I have in my car right now. So we're running the 6.0 iron block, like, junkyard motor with a Magnuson supercharger on it. And we've been running the same platform, basically the same setup since Pro 2. The cool part is this guy took my motor and also now has 2 championships on it. So it's super cool that this little 5.3 with a cam that makes like 350 horsepower NA has 4 championships on this thing with a stock T56 transmission, which I have no idea how that thing has lived so long.
That's amazing. It's funny that some people, especially like coming from SRs, a lot of people blow, several SRs a year, 2Js or anything else. Yeah. And then you hear about like this little 5.3 that's still going forever. These truck motors are pretty good. I have one in my S14 that's like been there for years and probably 100 days of drifting. They're good like fallback stuff because they're so cheap and just reliable. And even though they're heavy and stuff. But is that what you're going to drive on Driftweek, or do you have a different car?
So Driftweek, I'm going to take my M50 turbo car. So it's kind of a development car for us. So we know the E36 chassis works and platform works really, really well. I mean, that's what we've been killing it in, and that's the only thing I really know how to drive. S chassis do weird S chassis stuff that I don't even understand. They can like back up from cones and do weird things. So they're super cool. I just don't really know how to drive them. So we're going to take the E36, and then we decided to keep the stock motor and run M50, which just a normal M50 motor, and then turboed it. A lot of people out here are starting to do that build. The one who actually did this is Sam from 412 Motorsports. And I guess he's been huge in M50 turbos on the East Coast for a long time, then with VAC Motorsports. And they're like, no, trust me, don't LS swap it. Like, let's M50 turbo this thing. So it's a very, very simple car. It's WiseFab feel, coilovers, and then just M50 turbo. It has just a cage that we built here at Imagine Garage. And other than that, it's stock. I mean, stock drivetrain, stock like interior, stock everything. So it's a very, very basic stock car. It makes about 500 horsepower, and it's super cool. It's been super reliable for us. The other reason why we're doing it is we're trying to figure out any kinks or problems that the M50 might have, because we are looking to put one in a new car that we're building for next year. So we're trying to do some hybrid stuff, trying to figure some things out. Is it going to work? I have no idea. But this one seems to have had a lot of beating put through it, and it seems to do pretty well. We actually finally just blew up the transmission last week, but it had over 320,000 miles on it. So the fact that it's lasted that long in this chassis is kind of amazing anyways.
So, and you're going to street drive that car all through Driftweek. You think like it has windows, it has interior, or is it caged? Like
has a radio, has everything in it.
Oh, rad. That's so cool. So many cars get so stripped out and miserable that we never drive our drift cars on the street ever again, and they become complete trailer queens. And when they do that, you kind of like lose the lust for the car sometimes, because you know, like you just might not touch it for a year at a time or something if you're really busy doing Formula D, you know, because you're just not doing the type of event that car might need, like be needed at. But if they have interiors, you'll go rip it around and like, you know, have fun with it and actually like enjoy the car.
Well, and something to add to that is I knew that the truck and trailer, once it leaves California at the end of basically like beginning of May after Formula Drift, Long Beach, I don't see it for 8.5, 9 months. So I have to have a car that I can still get to the track in. So I street drive this thing everywhere. I street drove it today. It's only about an hour away, but street drove the car today. And I mean, it's a street car. Like I street drive this thing all over the place.
Have you been thinking about Driftweek and like that car at all, and how you're going to change the car for Driftweek, how you're going to plan out the whole thing? Or are you just like, the car exists, we're just going to take it as is and that's that?
So I'll probably rewrap it mainly for like social media purposes, so that the car matches, or it's not going to be perfectly matched, but it's going to be somewhat close to our pro livery, kind of the like the pink and green idea and design, just kind of like a watermelon-y look, because the fades are kind of cool, and I want it to represent, and so people kind of put the notion of like, hey, this is the same driver, even though not the same car, at least the same livery as what he runs in Pro 1, and it's something kind of similar for people just to look at and tie together. Because I know sometimes when I drive this car, they don't associate, because this car right now is white, red, and black, which is kind of the reverse of our old livery. People don't put one and one together at all. So it's kind of weird. I want to bring it back around so people know like, oh, this is the same guy who drives there. And maybe that'll help out in other aspects as well.
Another thing, when you're going to like come on Driftweek and drive that car and you're talking about the livery and everything, do you think at all about like say some of the YouTubers there to maybe create content or to get lots of seat time? Some of the Formula D guys such as Ben Hobson or Nick Novak, or I don't know exactly what Matt Field was doing, but in Chelsea, they might be just getting seat time and they might not be creating media or worrying about any of that stuff. They're simply just drifting as much as they physically can because they need to get 100 days in a year to try and be the best or something like that. And if you're Nick Novak or you're Ben Hobson, you're driving in Pro 1, but you're driving against guys like Chelsea and Denofa that are already better than you, already have a better car, already have a better team, already have more seat time and are already getting more seat time than you're driving. So it's a competition to get more seat time and improve in so many ways. Or like, you know, everybody is there for a different reason. Some of the grassroots guys there are just there for a vacation, such as Chris Finch or Max or somebody. Where do you think you're going to fit into that? And then what are your goals on the trip? Are you going to be creating media? Are you just going to be driving and ignoring everything? Because you know how it is. If you're creating media, you're obviously not enjoying yourself on track or relaxing in the same way.
So I think I fall in between a couple categories. I'm still very much a fanboy of drifting. I absolutely love drifting. I don't care what I'm driving. I can drive piles of junk or whatever else. Like I still absolutely love drifting and love learning from drivers. So I'm totally open to learning from different drivers and having fun tandeming with them and that type of stuff. So that's kind of one aspect of how I'm looking at it. Feel like I can learn a lot from these other drivers that are going to be on the event, like on the circuit and driving with us and going cross country and just hanging out with homies and making things happen. I also think by me changing the livery to a bright livery, I think media will naturally come with it because people like shooting bright cars. My in-house media team, which when I mean in-house, I mean he like popped his head around the door a second ago, like super in-house, which is Alex Slavi Squats. He told me he's like, can we get a really cool looking black livery? He's like, no, don't. Like, I'll never shoot you again. They hate, like media guys hate dark cars, plain cars, dark cars, boring cars. They just hate shooting it. So we get extra lucky because we have a really bright car that people shoot our stuff with like it tends to pop up a lot. So that's something kind of why we're going to rewrap it, make it really bright, really vibrant. Plus I'm trying to bring more of the like Japanese 90s vibe back into it when drifting was kind of still really cool back there. I know it's kind of died off and it's not as prominent in Japan as it used to be, but that's kind of what I saw and all the really bright stuff. And that's kind of what attracted me to it. Even though I'm not driving an S chassis or a cool Japanese car, I still feel like we can kind of put our own twist on our vehicles and what we drive. And it doesn't have to be a certain brand or a certain wheel or a certain whatever to fall into that category. And I feel like also by us going out there and building what we love, it inspires other people to do what they want to do and realize that it doesn't have to be a certain way. You don't have to, lose a kidney for a pair of rims to just be part of the hot boy group or whatever else it might be. So I know there's a lot of mixed thoughts on that, but I'm really into just whatever you like, whatever you think looks cool, like do that. I totally 100% support that. So that'll be that aspect of that. So it's kind of in the middle. And then the top thing is just get as much driving as I possibly can. Driving with good drivers, driving with all levels of drivers. I love inspiring other drivers and helping other drivers learn how to drift and get better in that. And really close tandems are still, super, super fun for me. So that's why I said I don't really care what I'm driving as long as we're all in like the same realm of either pro cars or shit boxes or whatever it is, then I'm totally having fun out there. Don't care what they look like. I really love, the door to door and the kind of the camaraderie that goes with drifting. Cause once you realize that you have to have other people that are also very good at drifting for you to have a lot of fun in drifting, then it becomes really, really cool when everyone's out there slaying it and killing it. So that's really kind of what I'm into. And there's nowhere I feel like that I've got as much seat time as I believe I can get at Driftweek and throughout Driftweek. So that's kind of the main driver for me.
You were telling me you run a shop, correct? And you build drift cars?
Yeah, actually, Imagine Garage.
Perfect. And you are all into drifting then. You're a professional driver. All your income comes from drifting, probably, or the majority of it.
Yeah.
How's that working out for you? Was
Great.
it a good life decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's previous to this, well, we'll three steps back. I was a tech for Ford. That was horrible. That was miserable. I literally clocked in every day, every night, like in and out. I drove 120 miles one way to work. So every day was like 240 miles back and forth. I'd ride a street bike or try not die on the way there and way back. Have homies pass away on bikes. So like that was just too much. Stepped out of that. Then I became a professional stunt rider for like street bikes. That's kind of the first time when I saw drifting is we were in basically in Japan and we did stunt shows for the multiplex in downtown Tokyo. And I remember seeing drifting and seeing, I mean, some people don't know this, but you know, Federico Sciarrifo,
Mhm.
the guy who drives a Ferrari. He actually is the original driver for Team Orange that drove the Subaru.
Mhm.
So the Subaru for Team Orange was Federico. So I didn't know him back then, but he drove at the same event that I was doing the stunt shows for.
Oh, that's
So we had
rad.
and that was super cool. We go down to Yokohama and like watch him drift on the streets behind the McDonald's, and like it was cool. It was inspiring. I wasn't really into it, but it was really cool thinking back and looking at that. So it's kind of just like kind of been moving forward, and from there I went into transformational training. So we used to train large groups of people. So I'd be on stage speaking, training, doing different things, which is cool for me because I was in special ed my whole life, and I had speech impediments, so I was always in speech therapy and all these things. So the last thing you'd ever think I'd be doing would be talking to large groups of people like that. That's like not a thing for people. Most people would rather, on a scale, they would rather be burned alive than speak publicly. And that's a true statement. Like we actually did research on it, and that's insane.
Oh, that's
Uh,
weird.
but once you realize that you're a human being just like everyone else, and that like when people succeed, it now becomes possible for you as a human race, then all of a sudden so much is open to you and available to you. And shifting the mindset over to that really helped. And what happened to me is basically I was inspiring other people to go out and go do your dreams and rah and yeah, let's make it happen, and doing like closed eye meditations for them and shifting their lives. But then I realized something that someone asked me. That's the only way I realized. But they asked me like, "Hey, what have you always wanted to do, but you've always avoided?" And since I was about a year old, my parents have always taken me to the Long Beach Grand Prix to watch racing. And I realized I've always wanted to be a race car driver. And like since I was little, I'd always watch like Days of Thunder and just always into race car driving. I had like a little big wheel. I try and ride around in the backyard fast, and like just wanted to be a race car driver. We never had the budget, never had the money as a family, and it turned into a driving factor for me. So I basically shut down my transformational like training center and stopped. I don't want to say stopped supporting other people to go after their goals and dreams, but realized that mine were just as valuable to the world as theirs were,
Mhm.
and it might be my only chance. So I literally stopped everything and just shifted directions and went another direction. Didn't really have any money saved up, had no idea how I was going to make it happen. I just went all in. I know that sounds really weird, but I literally went all in and just figured it out as I went along. And even when I opened up, so I opened up Imagine Garage in 2017, and I didn't know how to weld. I didn't know how to do anything but like kind of wrench on cars because I was a diesel tech. So like I could wrench on cars, but couldn't do any fabrication. And most of the drifting stuff is fabrication. So I was like, you know, I can only change so many oils and do so many sets of brakes. Like I need to do other stuff. And my neighbor across the street wanted to get a cage built. A cage builder is phenomenal cage builder, but he was about 9 months out. And he's like, hey man, you learned fast. Like, what if I buy you a pipe bender and a welder, and you figure out how to weld and learn how to weld, and you build my cage for free? And I'm like, all right, I'm down. Let's do this. I like sat in there welding for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, just sending pictures to my buddy who's a welder. I was like, is this good? He's like, garbage. Try again. Like that. He's like, nope, too hot. Try again. I'm like, how's this? Nope, too cold. Try that again. And I basically just beat my head against the wall for a little while until I figured out how to weld. And he's like, you're good. Like, you got this. You'll be good enough. Now figure out how to bend pipes. I'm not there with you. I have no idea how you're going to figure this out, but good luck. And I started to like bend pipes and figure it out. And the very first cage we built was a cage on an E30 that we had LS swapped, and it's actually my across the street neighbor. So that was my first cage, and we just kind of took off from there. And we thought about getting a bigger shop and bigger things, but most people don't know this. Imagine Garage is literally in the garage. That's like right there.
Oh,
So like
really?
the
Wow.
garage right there is literally my shop. It's a 1.5 car garage, and that's
And
where
do
we
you have
build
a
all the race
family and
cars
a
in.
baby or a wife or anything like that?
I have a wife,
Mm-hmm.
no kids. We decided we didn't want kids, at least not for now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, my pops is a diesel mechanic, like shop foreman, and my mother is a private preschool teacher.
I'm asking because I have a child now, and I'm like, how does everybody that has a family get this stuff done? Because you're
I
running
think
a shop, you're trying to drift professionally, you're trying to get as many days in. A lot of people don't realize, especially like if you're running a shop yourself, every time you go drift, it costs money. So if
yes,
you're going to go drift, not only does it cost money, it also means you're not at work because you're only paid maybe to do Formula D by the sponsors and not to go do your practice stuff. It becomes a
correct.
very like difficult thing to balance. Um, yeah,
So
I don't
and
have to
then
explain that. It's crazy.
no, and kids make it even more of a. It matters how you look at it, either more of a chore or more of a desire, because you also have to balance the fact of the family time.
Hmm.
So, and that can get very, very messed up, which I mean, it has for me, and I have only a wife, so I completely understand how that can. Um, but then also on the other side of that, here's my, change hats to the transformational side of it. Is it's kind of like who do you want to be for your kids, and how do you want to show up to them? And even for me, like, how do I want to show up to my family? And I feel like times are changing. Like the 9 to 5 job is not really kind of the cool thing to do anymore. And I think there's a lot. I mean, that's probably the worst, absolute worst way of making money, anyways. So if you can figure out another way of making money, another way of being successful, and showing not just you, your friends, but your family as well, like, look, like we can be successful. We just have to think outside this box that we've been put into. Then I believe that's where success really lies in. And I think once that clicks, then it becomes super easy to make money.
So you do pretty well, like doing only drift stuff. That's rad.
Like, and I'd say only drift slash random stuff. I mean, last year we did a cage on an Audi R8, which was kind of cool, paid well. But I just got a phone call that on the 18th, the guy's dropping off a 2022 AMG. Let me get this right. AMG GT BS, like Black Series. I had to Google this thing. I don't even know what the hell this thing is. This thing's
That's an
like
aluminum chassis that doesn't have, like, that's gonna be hard to
correct.
cage.
Oh, it's gonna be horrific to cage. But the reason why he asked me to do it is we did one of their teammates Audi's R8s, and it was
Yeah.
better than like the LMA cars, which are an extra 200,000. So he's like, we'll pay you whatever, like just like we want you to do it. So the car comes in actually 3 days from now, and then they're stripping it all out, and then I'll be doing all the fab work and cage work on it for them.
Randomly, I
So
know somebody that has a drift car, one of those that you know that's caged. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, he was supposed to
So
debut that thing, and I made a video about it, and then he never debuted it.
so I believe that's the older one. I don't think it's an aluminum one. I think it still is a steel frame, but I'm not
Oh, I thought
positive.
it was aluminum.
It might be. I don't know. I just know that the 2022 is aluminum, and the price
Yeah,
tag on it is ridiculous. And I'm like, are you sure you
yeah.
want me to touch this thing? He's like, we only trust you. And then I've got lucky too. I mean, I think the desire to succeed breeds luck. Because I did a FRS cage, and then like he's like, oh, I want to add a wing, I want to add body kit, I want to add all this stuff for it, but it's like a road race car, and the guy was from Qatar. Well, as soon as it was done, he's like, okay, here's some information. I want you to ship it to Qatar. So we shipped it to Qatar. When I say we, it's like me. I shipped it to Qatar. Um, and then he's like, I love it. This is perfect. I'm going to send you 3 more cars to do identical. We want to start a racing like homologation series for this.
Hmm.
So I was like, wow, okay. About 4 days later, Crown Toyota down the street from me dropped off 3 brand new FRSs with 0 miles on it. And he wanted me to cut them apart and build race cars out of them. So it was like, we've had really weird things going on that just kind of continuously goes and goes and goes. And now I'm starting to build up kind of a wait list. But the crazier part of this is how I budget it out. So most of the time, I don't know what cages cost out there, but most local guys are between $3,000 to like $7,000 for a cage. That's kind of out here at least. That's like $3,000 to $7,000 is kind of like a normal price range for cages.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I probably need to update my prices, but I'm doing cages like a normal drift cage, like an FD drift cage. You're about $2,500 to about $3,000,
Hmm.
and that's fully done, all done rocking and rolling. But it's because I brought my overhead so far down. That's why I'm able to do cages for so cheap. And I try and get people I literally like work with them at any kind of level that they're at. Like I try and make them as safe as they possibly can and as affordable as they can, because I know if it's too much money, then they won't do it. And that's not what I want. Like I want more people driving. I want more people engaged in the sport. I want more people moving forward. I think that's why we've been so lucky on it, along with, because I'm literally driving these cars all day long, we're only getting better at the fab work. We're only getting better at design work. We're only getting better at R&D. We're only getting better at all of it. And it's like, that's kind of the cool thing, is it's an ever evolving kind of a shop, because I'm not really attached to my opinion. Like if you have a better opinion than I do and I like your opinion, I'll take your opinion over mine. Like it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to get people, you know, successful and get them really what they want, and do the best we possibly can to keep them safe out there.
One quick thing I'd say with cage building is there's no easier way to ruin a car completely so you don't ever want to get back inside of it than having a bad cage. And most
Absolutely.
people think that like the welding or something like that is going to create a safer car or a better material or this or that. Basically, it's just not being a ding dong and putting a cage bar right next to your head where it's going to kill you. You know what I mean? Like, just, I'm sure you've seen so many Corvettes with bars like literally right here, right next to the dude's head, and the guy's trying to street drive it or something, you know?
Yep.
I mean, I cannot believe how badly most cages are built.
We get
Anyways,
some
we don't need
ones.
to dwell on that too long. I would just make
No,
it a
I know,
funny
but I
thing.
mean, we get some horrific cages. We actually just did an an E30 that the guy spent 10 grand on.
Oh,
And
wow.
the B pillar, let's pretend the B pillar slants back like it's supposed to. His B pillar was tilted forward, just to give you an idea. And the
Yeah.
guy's like 5'8" and could not fit in the car.
Wow.
So like the A pillar was tilted forward. The door bars, this is crazy, horrific. The top door bar went down and was welded to the side of where you bolt the seat in. Like
Wow.
welded to the seat bracket, not the floor, but the seat bracket on the car. And we're like, what in the hell? And then in the rear, the down bars were welded to the middle of the wheel well, like the hollow wheel well. And we're like, yo, this guy he spent 10 grand on this cage. And we literally told him, we're just going to cut the whole thing out and throw it away. Like, do you want any of it?
Probably 1,000 cars at this point, and I've seen people use fence posts as cage material. I've seen people use full like 2.5-inch exhaust tubing that they crush bent on an exhaust bender. And I mean, I've seen everything. It's insane. I'm sure you've seen insane stuff as a cage builder.
I got one of the best ones I've ever seen. We're in Argentina. I was with my good buddy RJ from Big Duck Club. We're driving down there, right? Just as like guest drivers, supporting them to build their community down there, because we love traveling. We're down there, like in this car. I'm looking around. I'm like, there's something weird with this cage. Like, I don't understand. Like, there's something weird with this cage. And you like feel it, and you're like, what the hell is this? And I don't speak Spanish well enough to kind of understand what's going on. So I have RJ like, hey, translate. How did they build this cage? And he's like, oh yeah, they bent the cage and they built it. I'm like, what's it made out of? And he asks him, and then he looks at me with like a weird dumbfounded face, like, let me ask him again. And he like asks him again, and he's like, looks at me, he's like, you're never gonna believe this. I'm like, what is it? He's like, the guy says you run wires in it. And I'm like, you run wires in it? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, you run wires in it in a house. I'm like, conduit? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you're telling me this cage is built out of conduit? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, ask him, why did he build this cage out of conduit? Because the welding looked weird. Well, it wasn't welded, it was soldered. And that's why I was like, what the hell is this? So he built it out of conduit because he says it's easier to bend.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you not understand
of course
what
it's
the
easier
purpose
to
of this
bend.
cage is designed for? Like, the guy hand bent the cage and like soldered it together.
Nuts.
So yeah, we saw some crazy things out there. We also saw, like, for a handbrake, you know how you have a brake booster in the front of the car?
Mm-hmm.
You took a brake booster, spare one, put it behind the rear seat, took a long bar from the front to the back, and then had the handbrake up front, and then had a vacuum. Dude, that's a lot. And then had a vacuum line from the front of the car back through the cab to the rear to add for the brake booster. I've never seen that. That was crazy ingenuity for sure. Like, full on brake booster in the front and in the rear. Now, here's the problem with the scenario. When you hit the brakes on the front or in the rear, you end up losing vacuum. So the hydro works really good until you like go to get on throttle, and then it just falls to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very weird concept. Like I didn't understand how this thing works, but it was creative for sure.
Have you drifted a lot of turbo cars yet?
No, I'm pretty new to turbo life. Like
Turbo cars, you're going to deal with that as you like left foot brake and you're tandeming on someone's door. You'll get on the brakes and on the gas and back and forth, and you'll start to lose all your power brakes, and you'll be on manual. And like, so your brake modulation will change drastically as you like drive up on someone. You're like, like it breaks your brain.
That's how I would call it Senate Sally, my practice car. That's how that one is. And we only started experiencing that to try and not lift a brake a lot, but we started to experience that on big banks. That you're like, when you're ripping around the banks, you're on throttle and you're like, brake, less brake, no brake, no brake. You're like driving up on them and you got nothing still.
I've gotten into these stock car NASCAR things, and I have a NASCAR that wants, because the brakes are so huge and the calipers are so huge and it's not powered and stuff, you can barely like get enough leverage with your foot to, you know, get the thing to stop and stuff. It's hilarious. So as you're driving, I have all these weird cars like that. All right, back to Driftweek real quickly. You had a question for me?
Yes. So I heard, I heard that I don't have to carry absolutely everything with me, that you guys do offer some kind of box setup or a transport box.
Yeah. Item. All right. So let me clear things up real quickly. So for logistics of Driftweek, everybody brings a car, a passenger, a driver, and then you guys street drive the entire way. You don't bring trucks and trailers. You can bring a truck and trailer to the beginning of the thing, and I set up storage for all the trucks and trailers at the first track, and then we circle back and grab them later. But obviously, you wouldn't be able to bring enough parts. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, perfect. So what I do is I bring out about 2 to 3 enclosed trailers for support for dragging everything along. We bring out about 1,200 tires. We pre-sell them all through Volino. We have 3 tire machines, compressors, generators, all that stuff. For the people that have money, they all just get Volino to change all the tires and stuff, and there's some broke boys. We just let them do their own because it costs less. Everybody has to have everything disposed of through Volino. You're a sponsored Formula D driver, so some of the sponsored guys that are actually sponsored, not the guys that get like 20% off from some tire thing. We do carry some of the pro guys' tires, and then we also carry a box. What we do is we get those black bins that are about that big from Walmart with the yellow flippy lids, if you know what I'm talking about.
Is it the same as like the Home Depot one with the flat tops?
Yeah, those things. It might be from Home Depot. I don't remember. I just tell everybody where to get them. I don't get them myself. We just have to have everybody have pretty sturdy ones so they can all stack. Because we typically have about 40 drivers on these drift weeks. The previous ones we had like 14 and then 26, and then we scaled up to like 40 something. You put your name on the side of it in tape so you can find the thing, and then I carry those bins for you guys. You can have up to 50 pounds in them, and then we also have whatchamacallit. We carry wheels for you. So we carry 5 or 6 wheels for you, like 4 rears and then like an extra front or 2. Some of the guys bring just 1 front. Some of the guys actually bring 2 fronts. What some of the guys do is they'll have a set of track fronts and then street fronts so they can flip back and forth so they don't have to drive on flat spotted fronts everywhere. And then the rears, you don't need 20 wheels like, you know, a normal big comp or whatever. You just bring 4 and you continually swap them out. Very few people go through more than like 4 tires in a day on Drift Week unless we have a really crazy day planned out. So you don't really need many wheels and tires. And then that's how we do it. And for someone like yourself with, you know, you're sponsored by Federal, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we would have them drop ship tires to some of the locations so that we don't have to carry them the entire way. Because it would be impossible for me. Because with 40 people, we have some guys going through 15 to 20 tires and some guys going through 50. That just, you know, budget's no thing. And we're doing, I think, 9 days on track this time with 6 tracks. So, you know how tires, if you were doing your Formula D car, how many tires would that be? 200?
Yeah, I mean, we go through like 30 tires a weekend. So,
yeah. So it would be a lot. So logistically, we just can't carry other people's tires. Typically, that's why we do it all through Volino, because we go through about, 1,000 to 1,200 tires on a trip like this, and it wouldn't work if everybody brought theirs. So yeah, that's your question or your answer about your black bin that we carry for you.
And
I
then,
was just saying that's the logistics of most of the thing. And then we also have catering for the whole trip that's provided by Careless Apparel. They do catering for the entire trip, and there's a catering package. That way you have food everywhere you go and all the drinks. You don't have to carry like a cooler and ice and everything.
wait,
We try to make it easy. What other questions do you have?
can I steal ice at the track for my cool suit?
Oh, yeah, if you set that up with Careless, they can do that.
Okay.
And then everybody has to use like
I mean,
just normal pump gas. So plan for 91 just in case you have a problem.
Yeah, 'cause we're 5 now, but yeah, I mean, I don't mind going. I just changed it to pump gas. It's not a problem.
Yeah, you will never find 85 like up in Oklahoma and stuff. It'd be a disaster.
Yeah, but isn't that where it's all made?
Doesn't matter. Like you can't even find 93 out there. You're gonna find 91 there. So if you tune your car for 93, just bring some cans of octane booster or something.
I just tune on 91 to make it safe.
There's a couple guys like Trevor from Ocean Auto TV that were running like 28 pounds of boost over in Arizona on Driftweek 1 on 91 octane on like 2Js, and they would just like blow them up immediately because they were trying to win like a drag race thing on an airstrip we were doing, and everybody gets dumb on Driftweek. Everybody does such dumb stuff.
Yeah, I need to drive the car back home, so I'll probably, realize that. I'll probably turn it down to like 400 horsepower just to
Turn
have
it
fun
down to 400. I love it.
Yeah, dude, the thing made like 720 on the dyno the first pull, and we're like,
Wait, an M20 or an M50? I mean,
M50 turbo, and we're like,
Dang.
yo, this transmission is not gonna live on a stock like ZF. I have
what
stock
turbo is it?
drivetrain. 60, I think 62, 64 or 60.
Precision then?
Yeah, it's a precision turbo, but I don't know much about turbos. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's good. You don't need
That was the last number I remember. It was like 62, 64 or something.
Okay. That's a pretty big turbo.
Yeah. So the reason why here's another funny thing. You know why we have a turbo car?
Why?
The reason we have a turbo car is because of Taka. So do you know who Taka Ayano is?
Yeah, Taka and I are buddies.
Yeah, dude, Taka's dope.
I've known Taka
extremely
for like 16 years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I look up to the guy extremely. As much time as I possibly can, or with him as I possibly can. And Taka watched me drive, and he's like, you're very lazy. He's like, yeah, you don't even, like, your clutch work is horrible. Like, you're very lazy of a driver. And I'm like, okay. He's like, you need to be better on the clutch. Like, okay, how do I be better? And he's like, build a big turbo car. Like, build a laggy turbo car. So basically, big turbo, low horsepower car. And that's what it is. And I got to kick that thing everywhere just to keep the thing lit up to, keep it in drift. However, it's helped me a lot in the pro car. Because when you go back to an LS supercharged car that makes, I think torque is like 980 at under 3,000 RPM. It's a world of different driving the thing, and you can start
on a stock 6-liter. You make that much?
Stock size. So it's a
okay
iron block with rods and pistons, but stock crank, stock LS3 heads. It's got a cam and valve springs in it, and that's it.
Okay, back to your Taka story. I love Taka stories. Keep going.
Oh, anyway, so yeah, my first drift car is actually an '86 Toyota Corolla. However, it wasn't a drift car; it was just a canyon car. So it was like open diff, like stock horsepower. I mean, it did not do very well at all. And that's when I bought a BMW, which actually became my first actual drift car, not just like a canyon car that I couldn't drift around in. So actual drift car became that, and he was our judge. And so I'd always ask him, like, hey, what do I need to work on? What do I need to do this? And how do I help that? And he's just very, very, very good at coaching and training drifting. And I mean, he wouldn't even watch me. He'd listen to me and be like, no. And I mean, he'd say other things, but I'd rather not kind of repeat. And it's like, it's just super funny to me because he just like hacked me down like every single time until I got to figure it out. So he was a huge asset to me as far as learning and getting car control and moving quickly in drifting was, you know, Taka and his wife Yoshi, because I think they really do care, and that care shows in how they like work with people. And I mean, I didn't really even have the budget to you know, have any kind of driving lessons, anything like that. So as I would drive and compete in the events he was at, I just asked him for help as much as I possibly could. And he was always very receptive, and he was always telling me good things. And it was like, I remember when I finally won the championship, and I'm like, man, like, what do you, like, how was it? Like, what do you think? Because I won by 2 points. Like, it was a swing all the way to the end. And I was like, yeah, like, how was it, man? He's like, boring. Like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't even watch your lead runs anymore. Like, you're boring. And I'm
Oh,
like,
Taka, you're breaking
like,
in.
oh, like, that's painful. And he's like, yeah, take it how you will. And I like walked away, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I know there's a lesson here. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what is going on? And I had to circle back around because I was like, couldn't leave with that comment. Like, something like, what is going on here? And I was like, no, like explain that. Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, in FD, like, who's boring to watch? And at the time, I'm like, Osbo. And he's like, mm-hmm. And just turned around and walked off. And I started to realize, like, wait a second, like, wait, what? And it was kind of like, it was kind of his way of saying, like, you're super consistent, and you're so consistent that the shit's boring to watch. And that weird, boring consistency, I was never able to chase in Pro 2. Like, if you watch my runs, I only won because of my lead runs. Like, I never won because of a chase. Like, my chases were horrible. And even when last year, like the first year of Pro 1, I still couldn't really chase. Like, I never even made it out of the top 32. And then now this year we came in swinging. So I literally had to work on my chase game practice and figure out how to chase and what my problems were and all that. But I mean, I got literally all through like grassroots and Pro-Am and Pro 2 only on lead runs.
Interesting.
That was it. And at the time I talked to Odie, and Odie's like telling me, hey man, I won most of my battles because I had a better lead run. Mm-hmm. So he's like, focus on being consistent. After you're really consistent and solid and can run the same lap over and over and over again, then work on everything else. He's like, because that way the team can make small adjustments and know that it's either getting better or worse. But he's like, if you have an unpredictable driver, then even the best team in the world cannot help you get better, because they don't know if the adjustments are just you driving differently or if it's actually working for the car. So he's like, it's, if you can get that consistency down, then it'll make it a lot easier for you and your team to work together, because they can make an adjustment and know that what the result is, versus just, you know, if you initiate 5 different ways and every single time you initiate it's a different style, it's like they have no idea what's going on and no one knows how to fix it.
Interesting. Do you teach anybody?
I do. Today was kind of, you know, we taught for Motor Trend, but I'm open to it, and I try and teach as much as I possibly can. Normally what ends up happening is normally I build a car for someone, and then I'll always go down and shake it down with them and describe to them why we did certain things and how to take things apart in under 5 minutes and work with their team and try and build a whole kind of camaraderie around it. But normally when I'm with drivers, I'll kind of just point out like one little simple thing, like, hey man, you know, like you're not looking far enough ahead for you to pick up what you need to do, or you're chopping the track, or, you know, you're V'ing off corners, so you're going like let's say cone hunting, or you're going zone hunting. So normally I can pick up things really quickly on what they're doing, and normally that's enough for a good driver to kind of shift. But then I've also taken drivers kind of from the beginning and walked them up through, and that seems a lot easier for me, because now they're learning without preconceived ideas and without notions of having to break bad habits. And
do you get paid to teach, by the way?
yeah.
Okay.
So it's, and I work with people as much as they can. I just flew to Colorado and did kind of like a group lesson thing. So it was kind of one of the first I've ever done that, but that was cool as well. So they had multiple people, and they're like, hey, will you fly out for a group of us and teach us? And that was super cool too, because like I stayed with them at their house. I taught, kind of like a group of people. So I got to kind of build camaraderie with them that night. Went over all the like classroom stuff because they were all at different levels. So kind of went over all the basics and like, this is what we're gonna do. This is the goals, this is the targets. Like, now what is your goals? What is your targets? What do you think you're suffering and battling with, and why do you think that is? And then starting shifting their mindset, because it's never really the problem that's the problem. It's normally just like, how do they look at the problem? And also teach people like, hey man, if you're messing up on this corner, it's like 90% chance of not this corner. It's whatever you did before this that got you in a screwed up line going into this corner. So it's sometimes shifting their mindset about how they think about drifting and just having them look at drifting from a different point of view.
Okay. Do you know who Reese Marin is?
Yeah. So no and yes, I've heard of Reese, and I know he's a super, super talented guy. I've done stunt shows for him back in the past, but I don't think I've ever actually met him.
Okay.
As far as
he teaches, he has a drifting school and everything, and he was on the last Drift Week, and he had a student there and was teaching on Drift Week. I was just thinking, not necessarily for you, but I was thinking I need to have Taka come out and bring like 3 students and have like a senpai relationship and teach people on like a 2-week trip. That'd be so much fun to watch. Or even like yourself, somebody that would do it as a business and actually get paid, by these students. And then how good could you make someone in 2 weeks of constant drifting every day, from the perspective of them learning how to change tires, how to work on the car, what brakes on cars, how to conserve a car, and then all the driving day after day after day, piling, all the lessons on. That kind of seems so cool.
I think you would literally take someone and shorten their curve by probably 3 years minimum.
You would never be able to fit that much time of teaching from like a Formula D Pro 1 guy into a grassroots guy, because the Formula D guy just is too busy all the time and can't dedicate 2 weeks to something like that.
Correct. So I think I
So
think
you
that's
should do it. No.
you're
breaking up. What'd you say?
I said I'm down.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a good business model. Plus I would have a lot of fun, because I think the starting goal would be, getting them super confident in the car, understanding what brakes, understanding how to brake cars, because a lot of people don't know why they're breaking the same thing or breaking parts. Like if you're breaking drivetrain parts, most of the time it's your fault. Like
You're pulling the e-brake while you're clutch kicking.
yeah, and I mean, not to call anyone out, because that's not my style. But I saw this happen to a pro driver. I'll leave his name out of it. It'll be better. A very, very good pro driver that I 100% look up to was breaking drive shafts and breaking axles, and we're like, what the hell is going on? And his team put a sensor in there to see the e-brake release and where the clutch timing is. And what was happening is he was coming off the e-brake, but he wasn't coming all the way off the e-brake by the time he was dumping the clutch on a 1100 horsepower LS car. And he was just destroying everything, and they did not know why stuff was breaking all of a sudden, and it was just timing was off. And something so simple like that can cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, because you're like, I don't know why I keep breaking axles, I don't know why I keep breaking diffs, and it's something so simple as timing on an e-brake or timing on a clutch kick or something.
Well, I think you should do that business model.
I think it'd be a good business model. I think
You're like, I'm not doing it. It's too much work.
No, but it's like, I think my starting goal would be like build some camaraderie and like start off really strong, as in getting them learning how to drift and working a clutch. I mean, today we taught a girl, I call her a girl because she's younger than me, but a very talented woman that has championships in drag racing and in other fields, how to drive a manual car. Even though she I taught her like how to drive a manual car. And I mean, you can steal this if you want, but one of the things I do at the beginning is I say, okay, cool. Put the car in first gear. You have to get into fifth gear without touching the gas pedal. And they're like, what? I'm like, yep, get all the way into fifth gear and then go from fifth, fourth, third, second, first, back down to 0 and stop the car with no gas pedal. And it gets them to figure out how to engage and how to control wheel speed with a clutch. And it's super valuable because you don't burn up clutches. And how much you don't burn up clutches is the clutch in my car is, I got it from Jeff Jones. It was an ACT clutch, twin disc, that was left in this old toolbox in the backyard of his shop, right? Needed a clutch. He gave me this clutch. I came over, got it from him, put it in the car in Pro-Am. And we went from there. I still have the same clutch. We've been beating on this thing now about 5 years of Pro-Am drifting and now pro driving. And so, I mean, like last year we had over 1,000 horsepower in this car, and it's still the same clutch. Now, some people are like, that's really good. Some people are like, it's really bad. It's bad because that means I'm not doing a whole lot of clutch work, but it's really good because I'm not abusing the car bad enough to burn up the clutches. So it's, you know, that's give and take. You can take what you want out of that. But if you can understand what is fragile on a car, and I learned that from driving a Corolla because everything's fragile on the car, to what's not fragile on the car, I think you and your team relationship will be a lot better off. The last event we ran, I ended up getting kind of hit and pushed off, and we ended up having to break stuff, but we did get back out on track to, you know, for the finals. But that would have been like the first time I've ever been knocked out or ever had a problem with a mechanical, even through Pro-Am, even through anything.
Wow.
And what got me through Pro-Am was that we never had mechanical failures. Like every event I started, I finished the event. Even if we didn't win, like it was a driver problem. It was never a chassis or car problem. So now as I'm building cars for people, I dumb it way down. Like one thing Taka really likes about how I build the cars is that it's super, super, super simple. Like anyone, not even a mechanic, can look at the car and be like, this is very easy to take apart. I mean, I'll weld nuts on the back of things, so you just shoot it with a gun. We converted all the bolts on the E36 chassis to 18s, even lug nuts. So the gun that you use for the lug nuts is the same gun that you use for the suspension, with the same gun you use for the trailer arms, or the same gun you use for the rear arms, or the same gun you use for the front arms. So it's like you can do everything on the car with an 18. So we just try and make things very simple for people. And that's stuff that is overlooked when you're building a car, because, you know, you don't really know that's what you're looking for. But that's what's also scared me about chasing or jumping into a newer chassis with maybe like a 5-link rear end or something, is that I've watched Osbo's team, which is a phenomenal team, bend a knuckle and not be able to get it back together, not in 5 minutes, but not even in 15 minutes. So it's like, if teams like that can't get it back together in 15 minutes, it's like, yes, it's a great chassis, but there might be some limitation to the comp side of it. And I've seen Matt Field's team struggle with the same thing, that sometimes the Corvettes are so hard to work on that, like, he can't do a clutch in 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Like, it's not happening.
You can do a clutch in 15 minutes?
Yeah, no problem. I have four. Really? There's 2 bolts on the bottom for the anchors and 4 bolts on the bell housing. And the trans pulls out, but then I notch the bell housing so the clutch slides out the hole out of the side of the bell housing. And then the firewall is like hammered in the corners, so I don't even have to take my headers off. I can drop my bell housing straight down to the bottom.
Wow.
So it's just about trying to make it easy and still pass tech.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we routed the headers with a little bend in it. Yes, you lose, I don't know, 0.5 horsepower or whatever the hell you lose, but you can drop the bell housing through the bottom.
Takes me 10 minutes to find Mark to tell him to go take the clutch out before we even get started. He's my helper guy. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Sorry to cut you off. This is because I didn't pay for Zoom, and we have a time limit, and I don't want to keep him. He's so cheap. He should understand this. I am going to pay for it next time, though. I just didn't do this before. So thank you so much, and I will see you on Drift Week. Bye.